Well, hello again, and welcome to another edition of Weird News and Wacky History, a look behind the scenes at what's been happening throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, that old history dude, with a question for you. Got some time-sensitive mail that needs to be delivered? A package that has to be there on time? Well, then you need to say, "It's in the mail." The package, which looked the worst for apparent postal wear and tear, arrived on Tuesday, December 11, 2012. It was addressed to Henry Walton Jones, Jr. at 1101 East 58th Street, longtime home of the University of Chicago Geology Department. It took a few days before a student made the connection. Professor Henry Indiana Jones had just gotten mail. The battered mailing envelope, wrapped in sturdy string, bore fake antique stamps with foreign cancellations. The typed mailing envelope misspelled Illinois and bore no zip code since they weren't invented yet. But the real treasure was what was on the inside. Nestled inside was a dusty cloth-covered book with a red spine, a spitting image of the Abner Ravenwood journal that Indy carries around with him in the movies. Recreated in meticulous detail, the pages were stuffed with photos of Marion Ravenwood, very real-looking antique money, postcards, newspaper articles, and other odds and ends of information. Careful examination reveals that it is largely homemade and carefully weathered and aged, but the handwriting is mechanically reproduced. So far, Dr. Jones has not yet appeared to pick up his mail, and the university remains puzzled about what to do with this package for one of their most famous professors. It's absolutely amazing what can be sent through the mail. The U.S. Postal Service are generally long-suffering folks, slogging through the worst weather imaginable to deliver strangely shaped packages and peculiarly wrapped thingamabobs and whatchamacallits with proper postage and addresses affixed. But what's the biggest item ever mailed? How about an entire bank building? In 1916, shortly after the U.S. Postal Service was founded, William H. Coltharp, a Vernal, Utah businessman, decided to build a bank in his hometown. Problem was, the bricks he wanted to use were 127 miles away in Salt Lake City. Bill, a frugal man, thought the freight costs were awfully steep, so he packed up the bricks, all 80,000 of them, and mailed them to Vernal. He had them each wrapped separately, then crated and shipped in 50-pound packages, 40 boxes a day. Needless to say, the Salt Lake City post office was swamped, becoming a thriving postal brickyard overnight. They all arrived safe and sound in Vernal, all 80 tons of them. This prompted United States Postmaster General Albert S. Burleson to rewrite the parcel post codes, limiting the amount that one person could send. In a surprisingly restrained proclamation on the new regulations, Burleson announced, "It is not the intent of the United States Postal Service that buildings be shipped through the mail." Think that's the oddest thing ever mailed? Not hardly. Just listen to this. The Postal Service faces the daunting task of handling all kinds of bizarre things sent through the mail. But surely the weirdest delivery goes to mailing children. Yes, I did say sending children through the mail. The new parcel post system was launched by the post office in mid-January of 1913, but there was some legal ambiguity over what or who could be shipped. Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Bogue of Glen Estes, Ohio, wanted to send their young son to visit Grandma. Comparing prices, they quickly realized that it was actually substantially cheaper to send the little tyke by parcel post rather than buying a pricey railroad ticket. The only restriction was that what was being sent must weigh less than 50 pounds. So the Bogues paid 15 cents for stamps, insured the youngster for $50, and, properly addressed and postmarked, little Bogue Jr. was mailed off to his granny. Lost to history is whether the grandson was mailed home again or traveled back some other way. The Postmaster General quickly tried to stamp out the practice of shipping this highly fragile cargo, but enterprising parents kept finding loopholes. The rash of parcel posting preschoolers peaked in 1915, when more stringent rules permanently canceled the practice. And finally, the Galapagos Islands are known for their large, slow tortoises, but they're also known for the most peculiar mail service as well. Email involves digitally sending electronic messages from one computer to another anywhere on the planet. But once upon a time, you had to slap a stamp on an envelope containing your handwritten letter and drop it in a postbox. But at least one place in the world didn't even do that. Welcome to Post Office Bay on the Galapagos island of Floriana. A tiny speck of land off Ecuador's Pacific coast, vessels of all types have put into Floriana since time immemorial to stock up on tasty giant sea tortoises. In days of sail, when voyages could last several years or more, homesick sailors eagerly sent letters home. First mentioned in David Porter's 1813 Journal of a Cruise, it was described as a box found nailed to a post over which was a black sign on which was painted Hathaway's Post Office. Little has changed in the centuries since, with an odd birdhouse-like structure now serving as the postal box. Even the delivery system remains unchanged. Tourists leave notes, all clearly addressed but without stamps. As new visitors arrive, they sort through the mail, pulling out mail with addresses near their destination. Then, without postmaster, sorting, or even any postage, the mail gets delivered the old-fashioned way, by kindness. And that's about all the time we have for this edition of Weird News and Wacky History, a look behind the scenes throughout the years of what's been happening. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, author, historian, and speaker, wishing that all of your history may be just a little bit weird.